Cool. So today's topic, as you all have know by now, is play-life balance. Now, I'll come to what the topic stands for, what I'm intending to cover, all of that further into the presentation. So I'll start with a short introduction about myself. So this is the best picture of me that I could possibly find. So it's all going downhill from there. So on Shairi's insistence, I've somehow managed to find an old picture and put that up here. So my name, like she said, is Sandeep VK. I'm also called VK, and these are the people call me Sandeep VK. I mean, it keeps alternating between that. At least to my face, these are the only two names I know of. Behind my back, maybe there are other names. Now, I come in with a total. I come in with a total of 15 years of work experience. 8 of them, which is more than half, has been at Regalix in 2 stints. I've spent 5 years in sport, and in sport, I've done some interesting things. I've managed Anil Kumble for about a year and a half. I worked with Mahesh Bhupati for about 6 months. I've managed to meet a lot of tennis stars from around the world because that's the sport that is of most interest to me. I've met all the current cricketers. I mean, these are my few claims to fame, and I'm happy to gloat about that because it's been such a memorable journey, and these experiences are things that I'll take on for the rest of my life. And of course, I had 3 years where I was exploring life, where I did a little bit of digital, a little bit of sport. I tried to study some. I tried to do a master's degree in sport simply because I wasn't sure if I had it in me to become a professional sportsman. I started pretty late. I was a fat kid who discovered sport only at the age of 18, and I didn't know which sport to pick. So I went through a complete journey, and I've indulged in various sports over the course of time. Cricket, of course, is something that every kid or every boy in India plays. So that's something that I represented school in. Tennis is something that I fell in love with because I grew up watching tennis tournaments that my dad is a big fan of, and then Federer happened and things changed, and I said no other sport but tennis. But then during the course of life, I've discovered that cycling and rock climbing and poker, they call it a sport, but I mean, I don't know. I guess it's because you are bringing out the same competitive spirit and mental faculties that other sports require. So I was on a 2 year trip on poker, and now squash is my latest pursuit. So I'm not really a sportsman, but I love sport. I know that things that you learn on one sport is something that you can apply to the other. There are a lot of learnings that you can pick up through the course of through the course of learning sports, and that's really why I'm trying to summarize my journey and my realizations through this topic. So we'll before I proceed, I'll try and okay. The time is about 7 o'clock now. I'll take about 20 to 25 minutes max through the topic. It's a topic that goes deeper than the title, and then I'll leave about 10-15 minutes for questions. I'll try not to exceed the time limit set, but then we started 5-10 minutes late, so please accommodate me. So yeah, so let's move on. Okay. One other thing, what all the slides that have a title in purple, please try and make notes if you want to. If it's interesting, it's something that we can talk about after this discussion, after my monologue. So, what is play-life balance? Now, play for me in this presentation, in this discussion, is really a placeholder for any pursuit that somebody is passionate about. It is not about sport alone. In my case, it is sport because that's something that I've realized is something I'll do or get up to do no matter where I am. So that's the reason why play is sport for me. But play for you could be music, it could be art, it could be any of the pursuits that you want to do. Now, and also through this presentation, I'm trying to talk to people who I believe are on the same journeys that or the same path of discovery that I have been on over the last 15 years. People who want to pursue something else, but they're caught up with life, with their career, responsibilities, and all sorts of things that life throws at them. So, how do you balance the pursuit of a passion while managing your mundane life? Now, that's really what I'm trying to address here. So, through this entire presentation, I will present a hypothesis to you, and it's working for me to a certain degree, but it's not time tested. So I'm saying I have to go through this hypothesis for 10 years to either sign off on it or either to quell it. Now I'm requesting you guys to think about if whether this will work for you guys, and at the same time be critical about it. So this is basically a hypothesis that I'm presenting for a balanced life, and I want your views on whether it will work or not. And there is some computation and algorithms that I've tried to build in the process. So you can also test it out. After this discussion, I'll send you some calculators where you can input your numbers and see if it all plays out well. Okay, so basis of this discussion, these are the key readings that I've done. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule, Josh Kaufman's 20-hour rule, the power of habit, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, each of these are topics in themselves. There are books on these topics, and there are also short YouTube summaries for those who don't want to read the books. Those 15-minute videos can actually, change your perspective. So there are links here. Please go through it. You will, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. For those who haven't come across these things. Yeah, and the assumptions I made. People have a tendency to procrastinate. People aren't rational thinkers. They're always anxious about societal pressures and financial pressures and all sorts of issues that plague our life. So the assumption is that people are not doing what they want to do because of the things that life in general throws at them. Okay, so this is my hypothesis. This is the crux of this entire presentation. So Josh Kaufman, who's an American psychologist slash author, has said that it takes only about 20 hours for a person to pick up any skill, no matter what it is. It's just 20 hours. So if enough to, let's say you want to learn the guitar, and he does that in one of his videos. So if you want to learn the guitar, just pick up the guitar, practice for about 20 hours and you'll learn that song. You'll learn the basic chord sequences and things like that. On the other end of the spectrum, there's Malcolm Gladwell, who's also an author and a theorist. Now, he says it takes 10,000 hours for you to become pro at anything in life. Okay, so if you take, let's say, Bill Gates, the amount of time he spent in computing, and these are examples he quotes in his book, Outliers. Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or anybody you can name. And if you multiply the number of hours they've invested in their practice before they became pro, whether it's a sport, art, whatever, any Van Gogh, he quotes various examples. It takes about 10,000 hours. Now, this is my postulation. I'm saying there is a sweet spot between being super casual and super pro, and that's achieved somewhere around 2,000 hours. Okay, the sweet spot is basically 2,000 hours worth of work, which amounts to about 10% of chronos. By chronos, I mean time, and I'll explain why I'm calling it chronos. Over 10 years, that means 10% of your time over 10 years. Okay, that's 1 year roughly. But you'll know how it's even lesser than that as I explain this, and about a max of 10% of your financial resources. So I have a computation for that. I'll share that also with you. Now I'll explain how this works. So this is the hypothesis. I'm saying there is a sweet spot here, and how do you really maximize that sweet spot, live happily, enjoy what you're pursuing, and still be able to do everything else that you want to do in life. So let me show you how. Okay, what this talk isn't, it isn't universally tested, nationally tested, or even locally tested. It's not published in any self-help books. It's not a methodology. It's not a cure for depression or other mental issues. So please seek help if you don't, if you're going through any of those problems. It's not a substitute to medication. It's not a religious doctrine, and it's not political propaganda. What it is, though, is personally tested. I've been testing it on myself for a few years now. It's a process of self-exploration. You start to know yourself better. It's great for building relationships. You have more peaceful relationships at home with colleagues and everybody else. You start getting calmer. At least people, I believe some of my peers in Regalix will say that about me, because when I started off, I was quite aggressive, and now I believe I'm slightly sweeter than I used to be. It's a summary of my personal experiences, and let me just do this. Sorry. Yeah, sorry guys. And lastly, I can't see this point for some reason. How do I get rid of this? Yeah.
Just click somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So if not anything else, it's an experiment that you guys can try during this entire lockdown 2020. It's an experiment for whatever is left of it. Okay. Now, this was something that I found on Instagram that is apt to summarize a large part of today's generation. Okay, so we spend the first 20 years of your life in wild abandon. We don't really care about what we're doing. We just go out there having, making friends, laughing, dining, doing all these things that we, enjoy doing in life. Then we hit a wall where, the only thing that matters is getting drunk on the weekend, because we hate work. Weekdays, we dislike work. We stop learning, and we're complaining all the time. It's okay to do that to a certain degree, but not for 40 years at a stretch. And that's really where a large part of the population fits. And then, of course, at the end of your life, and we've all heard our parents and everybody else say that, say this, or at least old people, one in every five will say this: they have regrets. Okay, they wish they did things when they were young, and they're always saying, "You guys have so many options today. We didn't have that." So usually, the latter part of life is in regret, wishing that they had done something about it. Now, okay, before I proceed, this is just to explain a concept. Don't confuse yourself with too much. This is basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which basically says that if your physiological needs are met, then you're seeking safety, and then you're seeking belonging, then you're seeking self esteem and self actualization at the end of it all. Now, he stacked it up, and there are a lot of critics to this theory. While a large part agrees to many of the things that he says, things don't stack up like this in life. I mean, there is a little bit of all of this in everything. And self-actualization can happen even before these things happen. It's just that it depends on the make of the person, the satisfaction he derives from whatever he's doing, and many other reasons. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but this is really the hierarchy that he's established back in 1970. Now, why I'm saying this is important is because some of the quotes that he's given, which I put out here: what a man can be, he must be. This need we call self-actualization, which means if you have an innate need to play music, if you want to be a musician, then only when you play music will you actually be satisfied. You can't do anything else. You can't go clubbing. You can't go playing a sport. Nothing is going to match up to you actually learning music. So you have to be, like, for example, these are all brilliant quotes from him, meaning more or less the same thing. A musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write, if he is to ultimately be at peace with himself. Okay, so basically what he's saying is you got to do what you want to do, and there is an inner programming that will tell you what you want to do, and everything else that you do you may have to do because of your circumstances, but you still need to pursue what you want to do. And in today's day and age, allocating huge portions of time to what you want to do means giving up on everything else. Now, my 2000-hour rule basically tries to tell you that you don't need to give up on what you want to do while still trying to balance everything else you want to do, because life is at the end of the day about balance. If one tips, then everything else falls. Now, I've come down to my own version of as far as I go with my design skills, red, blue, green, yellow. So I've broken it down for myself in 4 buckets: career, family, sport/fitness, because sport is to me a hobby, but a lot of people, for them, they might not enjoy it. For them, it's just about half an hour walking or yoga or any of the other things. So I put a fitness bucket here. And lastly, hobbies and learning, which is where the passions and pursuits happen. Now, if you see, there's a halo around all of this. Now, this is the self-actualization bit, which is basically your spiritual pursuits. Now, why have I put this around and not as a separate block? Simply because I believe your spiritual pursuits or your belief system permeates through every aspect of life. It doesn't sit aside, but it sits above. So it actually blends through everything else. So that's the reason why, and we can debate that later. I'm just stating that for the sake of proving my hypothesis right now. Okay, now this is an abrupt jump, but let me tell you this. For each of these categories, one, two, three, four, okay, these are the kind of resources that you will invest. There may be more, but this is what I believe you will invest. You'll invest time and money, which are assets, which are depleting. Why are they depleting? Because if you have, let's say, 100 rupees, you go out and spend it on something to eat, it's depleted. You don't have it anymore. You have to earn it back again. So it's a depleting resource. Money, again, time again is a depleting resource. We have a finite amount of time. We all don't know how much we have, but we know that our time is running out. Everything else is a mental faculty that appreciates. So your managerial skills, your ability to research, focus, creativity, all of these things get better over time. Simple example would be your Excel skills when you started off in Regalix, maybe like 5 years back, for people who have, and your skills right now. So it's simply because you practice and practice and practice, you get better. So these mental faculties I'm not going to touch upon, because they keep getting added on, whereas time and money you're losing. So, and these are the resources that you invest in all of these four. Now, so I'm going to talk about why it is worth spending time and money on your pursuits, and don't think of it as a waste, even if you're doing it as a hobby, and why you should do this. Okay, invest in depleting resources. So let's talk about the first resource: time. Now, you remember I mentioned earlier about Chronos. Now, what is Chronos and what is Kairos? Now, Chronos, this is a Greek concept. In Greek, apparently, they have 3 words for time. One is called ion, which means eternity. Chronos, which is the time that all of us abide by. So right now the time is 7:10. So it is 7:10 for everybody in India. So it's a time that's measurable. It's on the clock. It's usually got a negative connotation to it because we're always like in a hurry. I want that mail ASAP. I want this done now. And the affixations that you got usually to time are all the things that you don't really enjoy doing too much, or don't really enjoy doing these things all the time. Work, responsibilities, errands, phone calls, meetings, all of that fall under Chronos. On the other hand, on Kairos, it's a time that you make for yourself. It's that moment of peace when you're sitting, somewhere on a park bench and just observing the world. And it may be just 2 minutes, but 2 minutes of peace where you're just transported into a different world where you're by yourself. Now that's immeasurable. It's a qualitative, connotation of time. It's positive, and of course, your hobbies, your self exploration, all of these things actually get you more Kairos than Chronos. So these are the two concepts that we've got here. Okay, so what I would like to say is a little investment of your Chronos, which is your time, will actually give you a lot of value in terms of the experiences that you have. Now, this is my formula, and I will share this with you. We can debate this. It changes for everybody, but I will try and explain this in some form of fashion. Now, my four buckets, like I said, career, family, fitness, and hobbies. Now, this is how I've broken down my day, and then I've put a fifth component in here, which is rest, simply because we can't do without rest. We all need to sleep. Now, all your cigarette breaks, toilet breaks, ad hoc phone calls, they all roll up under these. I'm not really going to compute that time, but overall, just simple example. I mean, we're not busy for 9 hours in our jobs, and if we are, that will actually reflect in the kind of revenues that we bring in. So I'm not going to go into that topic. But having said that, we don't spend all the time here for the time it's allocated. So all the extra things that we do just roll up under these. So that's 24 hours. Now, let's ignore the fitness bucket because this was my plan that I appended here. So let's talk about hobbies and learnings. So I'm saying in a day, if you allocate 1.5 hours only, when I say 1.5 hours, of which I'm only taking 1 hour because the zero point 0.5 goes in transportation, getting ready, and all of those kind of things. So I have logistics basically. So that's basically 6% of your day, 1.5 hours. Okay. Now, over the course of a 22 working day month, assuming that you're not going to indulge in hobbies on Saturday and Sunday because you have responsibilities, you have to drop mom off, and all of those kind of things, you get about 33 hours over a month. Over a year, you get 396 hours. Over 5 years, you get close to 2,000 hours. And over 10 years, you get close to 4,000 hours. Now, you can, and 20 years is right there. Now, now I'm going to take only a 10-year effort. Why am I benchmarking this against 10 years? Simply because Malcolm Gladwell, this same guy who said 10,000 hours to become a pro, 10,000 hours, when you break down the math, which I'll show you in the next slide, it actually amounts to 10 years worth of work. Now, I'm saying don't even do 10 years at 1.5 hours in your hobby. I'm saying take 50% of that, which means you're doing 5 hours worth of investment over the course of 10 years. You get 2,000 hours. Okay, so which is basically 20%, 2,000 for casual, 10,000 for professional. Now, this is what it breaks down to. Okay.
Sorry to stop you short. Can you just take it a little slow so that we can digest all your maths?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Actually, the real breakdown is on the next slide. So here, the takeaway is if you spend 1.5 hours a day on your hobby, then you, for 10 years, okay, and you do it only 50% of the time, you plan to do 3 days, but you're actually doing only 1.5 days, you still get to 2,000 hours worth of. So 2,000 is the takeaway from it. Let me know when I can proceed.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So now let me just break this down again further. So this is a professional, let's say a professional golfer. Okay. He practices 5 hours a day, 24 days a month for 10 months a year. I'm taking off 2 months because of a vacation, injury, all of those reasons. And I'm taking off 2 years as well of the 10 years. Okay. I'm only calling it 8 years for whatever reason. Now, that's about 9,600 hours, very close to 10,000. Okay, this is what Malcolm Gladwell has stated. Now, the hobbyist, on the other hand, this is my theory. Okay, if he takes 1.5 hours and he takes only half the month, 15 days, okay, and he takes the same 10 months and he takes 8 years, not 10 years, it amounts to 2,000 hours. Okay, now let's go and see what the actual professional, what the actual training time of a professional is. Now, a commercial pilot license takes about 250 hours. I've multiplied that by 1,000. Okay, you have 2,000 hours, which means you're only taking 1,000 hours, even if you had to train. A filmmaker, professional filmmaker, and this is only the threshold. People get better as they invest more and more time in things. So, a professional filmmaker takes about 250 hours to start making films. Okay, this is information off the internet. Now you have 2,000 hours, which means you still have 87.5% of your time left. Okay, if you were to apply your time to pursue any of these things. Complex languages, Japanese or any of the Chinese languages, they take up to about 1,000 hours, is what they say. Now you still have half your time back with you. European languages take 400 hours. You still have 80% of your time. So on and so forth. There are more examples. I can give you all of that. Now, let's take a simpler case. Now, if you go on Udemy, you'll see that any course that you want to do is an average length of 20 hours. Okay. And I'm saying you take 2,000 hours, which means only 1% of your time goes in learning. The rest of it is all training and practice. So 99% of your time is with you. So what are you really waiting for? This is on the time front. So don't worry about the time. You have plenty of time. And some of the examples of Udemy courses, the complete financial analyst course takes what? 18 hours. This is AWS Certified Solutions Architect. I'm sorry, I don't really understand what that means, but it sounded complex. So that takes about 18 hours. Another example, if you want to do design, if you want to do drawing, that's 11-hour course. And this is only, the course time. Of course, you have the 99% time for you to do what you have to do. Guitaring, 40.5 hours. Okay, similar examples. If you want to do something in psychology, if you want to do baking, again, it's only 3 hours. So you can imagine these are courses on Udemy. There are other e-learning platforms, and you can test this against that as well. Now, so this is on time. I hope I've conveyed my points across. If you have any questions, please make a note now, because I'm going into the financial aspect of it. Now, finances, that's the other depleting resource that I talk about. When you pursue your hobby, you're losing time, you're losing money. So let's talk about money. Okay, this is another formula. Now I've taken a base Indian salary of 4 lakhs. Okay, not more. And I don't think this is too high. And we can work out the averages again, but I'm just saying with an annual increment of about 4%. Okay. Now, over the course of 10 years, 2020 to 2029, this is how much your gross earnings will be. And at a tax rate of 15%, because this is a lower slab, this is your net earnings. Okay. Now, let's at this side, the yellow quadrant or the yellow portion of this grid represents the cost. These three things represents the cost of equipment. Okay, like for example, you want to buy a tennis racket. That would be an example that applies to me. You want to buy a golf set. You even want to buy a grand piano. Okay, you can afford at a hobby level. I'm not saying pro. Federer's racket would cost about 35,000 rupees if I had to buy it. Whereas if I had to buy a tennis racket as a hobbyist, somebody who wanted to pursue a hobby, I can buy a racket in 5,000 rupees. Okay, so even if you put an expensive hobby in these three ranges, and you have to repeat, you have to keep buying this equipment at a frequency of 10 for like cheaper items, and for the expensive items you buy it only once or twice over the course of 10 years. It'll be a maximum of 1 lakh to 1,30,000 rupees. Okay. Now, your recurring costs, on the other hand, coaching, replacement, transportation. Now, all of this, not everybody is going to get coached. There are e-learning platforms where it's easier to learn. Not everybody needs replacements like grips and strings for sports, whereas for music, I guess it's only strings on guitars, and for drums, I don't think there's much change. I'm just giving you examples. There won't be much. So I've just averaged out the price of things here. Okay, and facility booking doesn't really apply for anybody who's not pursuing sport. So the total cost is actually 1 lakh plus all of these things. 3 lakh 50 is 4 lakh 80 on the higher end. Okay. So it is about 10% of your gross earnings and about 11.75 of your net earnings. Now, is it really worth investing that money? It's that little on a lower end salary. But if you still think that's expensive, if you think, okay, I've spent time, but I'm also spending money, is it worth investing? Let me tell you why it's worth investing your time and money. Okay. There are a few exceptions though, and these are exceptions like scuba diving and skydiving and yachting and all of these things. If you have rich, expensive tastes, then the financial model might not apply to you. But then there are still alternatives to that, because if let's just take the example of travel. If traveling is your hobby, it's not like you're going to spend 1.5 hours every day traveling. I mean, that logic doesn't apply at all. What you would do instead is figure out a profession where you can travel and blog on the way, or do digital marketing while you travel the globe and things like that. And we've seen a lot of these things on Instagram and everywhere else. So you might want to adopt a profession that's more suited to that, because if you are so passionate about it, then you might as well do that. Now, if you want to try any of the things that are unavailable in your location, like skydiving and scuba and all of these things, if there's no ocean, then move to another location, find a job that supports that. Now, there are alternatives as well. So if car racing is not the thing, then why don't you try go-karting? See if you like that. Why do you want to invest in the big thing right away? See the smaller things, see if you have an interest in that, and then figure out a way. And then, of course, there's the way of internships and apprenticeships, which you can really try, because that gives you a flavor of actually being, with the professionals, seeing how it's done, and then seeing if that's for you. Because a lot of times when you're figuring something out, you might realize that, okay, this is not for me, and then you want to step back. So why make big huge investments? You can still do it small. So again, in summarizing this, time and money, two investments, you don't need much. You need about a maximum of 10% of your time, but based on the calculation I've done, it's only about 3-4%. And money, again, maximum of 10%, but you still don't need to get that far. Okay. Now, a sports example. Let me just give you this, and this is again close to heart. So I've broken down the components of not semi-professional, but a serious hobbyist. Okay, gear. Okay, they are affordable options. Decathlon's brilliant. I've been there like 5 times this month. You can buy anything you can possibly think of for the kind of level of sport that you're playing. If you're going pro, that's a different story altogether. Now, if you spend about on gear 10,000 rupees annually, let's just pick tennis for example. You can get two rackets there for about 6,000 rupees, and you can still buy your shoes, which is about 3,000 rupees, and you can still save about 1,000 rupees. So that's 10,000 rupees one time annual expense. Your clothes and all I'm saying you'll buy clothes quarterly, because we want to be fashionable when we do something that we like. So we'll buy that about 4 times a year. Playo, it's a good app. The founder of Playo is a friend of mine. It's a great app where you can book facilities, and you can actually go there, find partners, and you can play. So that's a way to do it. Otherwise, if you have friends in apartments who have all of these sporting arenas, then that's a place where you can indulge. So that's free. That's a free option. Then coaching, there are many apps. I know of one, Healthify Me, but then there are other examples. There are other such solutions out there, so you can find them. Nutrition, I don't think at a hobbyist level you should worry about nutrition too much. Just make sure you eat healthy, you don't junk. As simple as that. And if you want free food, then just go to your parents' place and you'll always get that. Lastly, recuperation. Professional sportsmen have masseurs and people like that. You don't really need that. There are easier options. Buy a massage ball, watch a YouTube video, you can do that. Or if you want it for free, then ask your spouse, partner, friend. They should be able to do it. And in spite of all of that, you'll getting all of these things, which are more or less things that professionals seek, but at a smaller degree, you still end up spending only about 55,000 rupees annually. Okay. So it is still 10%. If you go back to that computation that I did, it is still only about a max of 10%. And this is all on the higher end. If you look at it, you'll find things for a lot cheaper in Decathlon. Now, a hobby that is affordable both on time and money, but is it still worth it? Because people have doubt, and we always have doubts. I've been through that journey, so I know. Okay. Now, this is like a fifth standard setup. The answers here, all these bullet points, so you can read them. But I'll tell you this one thing. Our body is usually a vortex of chemical reactions. Okay. And for the all the pleasure that you experience in life, there are four chemicals that really cause that: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and it's not adrenaline. There's one more I forgot. Endorphins. Yeah, that's not listed in this graphic, but so these are the four chemicals, and they have and I'll send you a link. It's also on the notes. I'll send you that link. You can read about it. These are the four chemicals that really make you happy. It makes you like, for example, dopamine is the kind of feeling that you get when you win something. When you accomplish something. Serotonin, on the other hand, is this feeling of love. When you're amongst friends and family, you feel a certain sense of happiness. That's what serotonin is. Oxytocin is what usually mothers feel for their kids. But at the same time, men also experience that when they play sport. And endorphins, it's a hormone that basically helps you forget about pain. So when you're playing and you're injured, you still want to play. That's because endorphins have kicked in. They've actually overridden everything else that's happening. And adrenaline pretty much does the same thing. So what sport does, or your hobby generally does, is basically infuse these chemicals in you. So you're generally happy through the day. that 1 hour of pursuing what you want to do actually helps you get all of these benefits through the release of these chemicals in your system. So please go ahead and play. These are the intangible benefits. Now, for those who are still worried about money and time that they've invested, there are the tangible benefits. Now, let's just say you spend 10 years doing all of this, and at the end of it, what? Okay. Now, there are other options as an alternate career, which gives you supplemental income. You can be a coach, you can be a gear expert, you can be a consultant, blogger, performance psychologist, critic, scout. And this is not just limited to sport, it can happen across different domains. Now, here's again a small computation here. If you were to coach for 1 hour a day for 10 days a month for 10 months of the year for 5 years at a cost of 750 for personal coaching, in half the time, which is 5 years, not 10 years, you still recover 80% of your money. So I don't think that's too much to lose. So if you spent about 4.8 lakhs and you get 3.8 lakhs back over 10 years, you're not going to crib over that 1 lakh that you lost. You have experiences, you have a skill, and you have supplemental income that keeps adding up. So there are a lot of intangible benefits. It saves you on so many hidden costs like going to the doctor or buying medication and things like that. But over and above all, pursuing a hobby has tangible benefits as well. Now, you all know this guy, right? He's the captain from Star Trek. Just kidding. Okay, so this is one of his lines. What do I like doing? Now, that's a big challenge because for me, I had to figure it out. So I started off as a science student, didn't want to continue there. So I did arts and didn't want to continue there either because those guys were really bohemian. And then I eventually did management. Okay, so these are the different, this is the course of my life. So through it all, I was just trying to ask myself, what is it that I really want to do? Now, the truth is, you don't choose your passions choose you. You wait it out, it'll come to you. But what do you do till you wait it out? Okay, and these are a few more quotes on passion. Because we're running short of time, I'm not going to read through each of these. But until you find your passion, keep exploring because there is no added cost to exploration. Okay, and it's only a fraction of the fraction that you spend in terms of time or money when you pursue a hobby. Let's say all the calculation that I did, that applies when you find that the thing that you want to do and go after it. But if you are exploring, the cost is a fraction of that. You're not going to spend 50,000 a year for something that you're still figuring out. You're not going to invest so much time for something that you are not sure if you enjoy. So, and at the same time, a lot of people today talk about bucket lists. After that movie was released, everybody wants to experience different things in life. They want to try skydiving, this and that. So exploring actually gives you the option to go through all of that and then say, okay, fine, this is what I really want to do. This is who I am. I don't, and as you get, I don't know, this happens to me. This has happened to me, but I don't know if everybody has gone through this. But at some point in time, you realize that you want to do things for yourself and not for society or for anybody, or not to be known as this person, but to do this for your own personal satisfaction. And that's really what this play life balance is about. It's finding that little time for yourself to make yourself happy. So eventually, after going through this journey of exploration, you will find that the thing that you want, because remember, what you seek is seeking you. Okay. I mean, it's something that I really believe. The other thing is, in summary, if you try things as a hobbyist, you do not have the pressures of being professional. Ask a professional musician, a scientist, a sportsman, or anybody for that matter. If they have to make money, balance time with family and their job and everything else, it becomes chaos. Whereas if you do something that, and you might say, I love this, I love it so much. I mean, it's nice to say that, but when you actually pursue it as a profession, it's very, very pressurizing compared to pursuing it as a hobbyist. So that's another reason why being in that hobby bucket with something you like is far more satisfying than ever being professional. Then, of course, there are many other benefits, self improvement. Then you find purpose. I mean, we're all trying to find purpose at the end of it all. That's the top of the food chain, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self actualization. So you may find purpose, you may not find purpose, but at least along the way, you're having incredible experiences, you're having fun. And the thing is, what you learn in one space is something that you can apply to all other spaces in life. And all for what? About 3% of your time, 10% of your financial resources, and a lifetime of benefits. So this really is. And lastly, just to let you know how much time I've spent on this. So I've spent a total of 15 hours. So in hobby days at 1.5 hours, that is about 10 days. So I would have spent about 240 rupees per squash booking, which would have come to 2,400 rupees. That's what I save. But in future income, this is what I lose if I uh, because I spent that time. So that's about 7,500 rupees. So thank you. I'm open for questions.
Wow, I think VK has reached some other level of nirvana and he's sending us on some other level of self actualization. Thank you for making us feel that we are not doing anything with our lives, VK.
Neither am I. That's why I got here. At least I thought I'll summarize.
No, I mean, that was a really interesting talk, and I think it's got everyone thinking. Any questions that we have from the panelists and attendees? It's a lot of thought that has gone into this, and um, I think we have some really interesting comments that is coming up on chat.
Yeah,
So,
I'm seeing the
VK, you can breathe now.
really
And
You're,
then,
you're just an ordinary rich man, right?
ordinary rich man. No?
So, VK, you were in sports industry, right? As a career. As a
Yes,
career, you were
I
there
had spent about
4 or 5 years.
sorry, sorry, go on, Tanya.
No, I was saying you spent like good 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah, I did.
What made you move from there to some, a totally different field?
Yeah. So, okay, let me explain it this way. I wanted to play Tanya. That was as simple as it. But then, because I spent so many of my earlier years not playing and wasting time and smoking and hanging around with friends, I thought, okay, fine. My entry into sport would be getting back into professional sport. And then when I got there, I got disillusioned simply because, I mean, there's nothing really done for improving sport. The real fun of sport is not there at the professional level. I didn't really see that. I saw that most people who are working are trying to cater to the egos of the guys who already made it. They don't really make money. At the same time, there's not much satisfaction. There's a lot of stress for two people to get on court and play. I mean, any international sport, whether it's cricket or any other sports, there are so many volunteers and people working for free or breaking their backs. But I mean, it goes unnoticed, and at the same time, there's nothing you can take away from that either. But when you play, it's a completely different experience. I mean, I can have like a crazy project on Google, back to back calls, but all I need is that 1 hour and I can actually come back feeling completely blissed out at the end of that session. All my stresses are gone simply because I've gone and exhausted myself, and all of these chemicals get released into the system. I feel happier. I'm able to take on the world. So that's really why I quit. I thought playing is very different from working for people who are playing. I'd rather play myself, and I don't need to do it at a professional level. I don't need like 50,000 people in a stadium sitting and watching. I mean, as long as I feel that, that should be good enough.
Yeah. I wonder how many people here in this audience is into any kind of sports. Probably we could have done one survey there.
Yeah, the truth is I haven't explored Zoom, and I'm still very uncomfortable with Zoom to try out any of these things. I have a client call with Periscope every Monday, and I goofed up on one of the sessions because I was trying to show him something, and I opened Netflix and some video was playing. It's a lot of expletives. So I just thought I'll be safe this time with the larger audience. I didn't want to try any experiments on nothing. But I'm happy to engage with anybody who wants to talk about this. I've spoken to people at length. Shari and I have spoken. Shashi and I have spoken. I mean, many people in the company. I mean, this is really what I talk about. I mean, so I'm happy. Yeah.
So, what would you suggest to someone who has taken up a hobby in sport and just quit midway? What will your mantra be to motivate them to keep going? I mean, that was in the entire presentation what it was about. But yeah.
Okay, so I mean, quit midway can be for many reasons. Now, the reason for quitting is what you need to find out first. See, a lot of us are okay. Let me tell you my own example. I tried rock climbing. I mean, I can only quote examples and experiences that I've had, so please bear with me. Now, it's great to watch, National Geographic and all of these channels and see them hanging at the edge of a cliff and things like that. But rock climbing as a sport, I mean, most of us are tuned to using our hands and not our legs. So when you climb, you don't climb with your hands, you push with your legs, you don't pull with your hands, because if you do that, your upper body starts tiring out very fast, and it cannot hold the weight that your legs hold. And that kind of conditioning didn't happen to me. So as I tried the sport, I realized that, man, this is so tough. All these years I've been telling myself that, I must do it. So I spent 4 5 years doing that, only to realize that I was imagining myself enjoying it when I'm not really enjoying it. So to go back to this individual who asked the question, if you don't enjoy it and quit, that's fine, because that's not for you. And at the end of the day, this grid and everything else that I put together is a reality check more than anything else. So it tells you whether you should pursue something or you should hold back. I mean, you don't have to show this to anybody. It's basically to ask yourself. Now, if you quit for any other reason but for the fact that you enjoy it, and this is purely pursuing pleasure, because everything else in life comes with a lot of bondages. So just for the pleasure of it, if you enjoy that sport, then return to it. I mean, there are easier options. I mean, I'm happy to help you through that, because I mean, similar to this, I have an algo to figure out which is the sport that you would want to try. So there's another book by this guy called David Epstein. Okay, let me try to Google that. David Epstein. Yeah. Okay. He books. Sorry, guys. Just give me a moment. His books. Yeah, The Sports Gene. Yeah, how can I forget? Yeah. So read that book. You'll understand that different people are predisposed to different kinds of physical activity based on their genetic structure and everything else. So anyway, I've simplified that. If you want to talk about that, feel free reaching out to me. And the ultimate competition at the end of the day is with yourself. If you're running like 10 kilometers in, let's say, 2 hours 20 minutes, and it comes down to 2 hours 15 minutes, that's totally okay. You've improved on yourself, and you're doing this as a hobby. You're just trying to derive pleasure. You want to get better, you invest more time in it, and your interest in it will directly be proportional to the output that you see. So you have to motivate yourself. Nobody else is going to take your hobby and tell you, come on, you should pursue it. They might encourage you once or twice when you perform in a public space, but that's all they'll do. It is for you to pick up and move on.
There's one more question that we have. After a certain point in life, the value we get out of activities like sports, do you really suggest us to measure the value, or just go by the mental satisfaction that we get out of it?
Okay, so this is for the rational irrationalist, this entire formula and everything else. But the truth is, when you start deriving satisfaction, you're going to forget everything. Like the same example again, like 6 months ago, we went for that first squash session. It's still stuck in, I mean, I really enjoyed that, like just hitting the crap out of that ball, not worrying about anything else. And I still stuck onto it. Why? Because I enjoyed it. So if you like it, you will go back to it. But if you want to justify it to yourself before you start, and this is for people at the threshold really, if you want to start and you're thinking 100 times whether you want to start or not, start. I don't know what the demographic of this group is. It must be in the early 20s, and you still have a 10-year advantage over people like me and everybody else if you want to start. So, and every 10 years you can change your hobby if you want. Not even 10, 5 years. I mean, not all hobbies take that many years for you to like reach a certain stage. You can not, you can try 5, 10 hobbies, but go after what you want to do. It's one life. You don't want to like have regrets later. And this is all falling within that reasonable, framework of being legal and being ethical and things like that. So as long as it fits in that bucket, why should you hesitate to try?
Okay. I think this has been a very insightful session. And if anything, I'm just going to meditate this weekend and start thinking about life in general after this session. Thank you so much, VK. I think the questions were also very insightful. So if you guys have any further questions, please reach out to VK directly. And thank you so much.
Also, just before we part, how do I get to read all of these pings? As in, like once the host cancels the meeting, I can't get to it, right? I mean, is there a way? Because I have not attended to any of these actually.
I'll just copy paste and send this to you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think the recording will have it.
Correct.
Oh, great. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, but maybe copy paste and give it to him.
Yeah, sure. I think overall people have been very excited. That's what's coming out from the.
Very happy.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting put together. I think.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone.
It just gives people a very different perspective of looking at things that they do. Yeah.
Thank you, Baba.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, VK. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.